Hello everyone, this is Kimlin Ton Babby with Q's Blue World, bringing you another You've Got to Meet series. And today, you get to meet TJ in Canada, in Windsor, Canada. So I'm gonna ask you, TJ, to tell us, who is TJ?
All right, I'm the son of Terry, who's the son of Les, who's the son of Henry, who's the son of John, who's the son of Richard, who lifted his spirit in such a way that in somewhat the sunset of his life, he broke the chains of enslavement and left the land that he was conditioned to be rooted into in Virginia. And he carried his family a lot of miles to Pennsylvania, where he purchased 150 acres of land for $2 and began conducting on the intricate circuit we know as the Underground Railroad, which was fighting for the liberation of peoples of color who had been enslaved. That's who I am. Those ancestors live inside me, and I occupy this avatar, and I interact with the world. With everything that I do is because of what they had done. You know, so I live a life of service, which is what brings me into a position of arts administration when I just want to be a creative and alchemize.
So tell us about this incredible space. So I'm gonna pan. Back to you.
Yeah, so Artcite has an interesting story for its time. It's
You can tell, guys, that Lucian's not behind the camera. It's me this time.
It's a fall down on the floor story. So back in 1982, there was a collective of about 10 artists that had come together to do something revolutionary. You know, this is a time where spoken word performance was identified as experimental, you know, and there was no place for it. We're a city that has galleries, but galleries are very traditional in their cultural sense, you know, and we're talking about beautiful works that live on walls and are observed in such a way. This is a group of people who are, you know, coming out of university, coming out of the 70s, they're ready to do something different. They wanted their own space. At that time, that's a revolutionary move, and what they did is they created an organization called Artcite, an artist-run center, which was one of those hot button words at the time, right? Like very trendy. We're all creating artist-run centers. Artists are doing it for themselves, kind of thing. But what I learned with my time in this organization is that wasn't the intention. They weren't being revolutionary in that they wanted to be part of this circuit of artist-run centers. They just didn't want to be known as an artist co-op because they didn't feel as though co-op captured the energy of what they were and what they were going to do. So they became an artist-run center. 40 years later, we're still inside the space. We're still programming. Our mission,
Wait a minute. When did this start?
1982. So we are
1982, people.
Yeah, we are we're in our 40th year.
Congratulations.
And we're going into our 40th year, coming out the other side of a global pandemic. Transitions after transitions, and here we are. And now we're reflecting as an organization and as an individual as well. Like, what's the purpose? Like, what's the utility of an artist-run center in 2022? I feel as though an organization such as this, in its 40th year, I think it'd be best for us to facilitate space for emerging organizations that have the talent, have the idea, but don't have the balls, you know, to plant those seeds. And I also think we should really be thinking about providing program grants, you know, to local creatives, scholarships, you know, to academics. And so that's where I see the organization going, but it comes It comes out of that 1980s vibe. And if you were to look at the picture of the folks who founded this place, I mean, it's very telling of the community at that time. I mean, there's no people of color. There are women identifying people who were in there, so that was happening. But we've not been a very diverse organization for a long time. And what brings me to the organization is that in 2020, they dropped a Black Lives Matter statement. Did an audit of their programming, found that they'd not shown a person of color in a handful of years. And right around the same time, the ED position was becoming available, and I thought to myself, you know, I want to make it seem like I thought about it for a long time, but it actually happened quite quick. But I thought, you know, what better way to hold an organization accountable than to apply for that position, you know? And that's what I did. And by November of 2020, I was offered the position. I officially started at the beginning of January 2021 inside a gallery and organization that was surrounded by a community in lockdown, you know. So what I had the opportunity to do with the leeway that I had due to the circumstances is I got to go into the basement and just like dig through archives, go through the letters of incorporation, letters of patent. And what I found is that creative people do what creative people do, and they created a whole story of their conception in the letters patent. And I thought that was so amazing that, like, as people come in, I'm like, you have to read this story because it's wild. It's the story of 10 people starting an arts organization, and the speed bumps that you encounter, and then the success that you encounter. And then you can go through like boxes and boxes of successful grant applications, and you can find the first successful grant application and kind of use that as a compass to steer yourself through the history of this organization. You know? So it's really quite fascinating. But this organization is 40 years old. I'm 41 years old. I've been in this community my whole life. My whole creative practice has happened for the most part here, and I had no connection with this organization. You know, so coming into the organization without any like chips on my shoulders or any attachment to whatever the past was, I could kind of start with a clean slate.
And yet, you said that you didn't have the attachment to the past. So with fresh eyes, you were like an archaeologist and a historian, and you dug out the primary sources, and you pieced together the story in a fresh way.
I was like a curious 5-year-old in a sandbox and a shovel. You know, and I'm like, oh, I wonder how many grains of sand are inside this box. 1, 2, 3, and you just keep on going until somebody stops you. And sometimes it's not somebody, sometimes it's something, and that's the business of arts administration.
And many people say, oh, I'm an artist, I don't want to go into arts administration because there's very little creativity. I just heard the full send in creativity in your search and your storytelling.
Yeah. The space itself becomes your work, right?
Yes.
You know, and if you can't find that in it, then you burn out immediately. But if day after day you go into a space and you think, oh, this is a canvas. What's going to happen next? You know, what's going to be produced, and when the time comes to prime the canvas again and then to recreate, and you kind of get to maintain a slice of sanity while you are performing in the role of arts administrator, and you just hope that when you get to the end of it, the boat is still, you know, on top of water and not below sea level, and then you're good to go.
I am so excited because oftentimes people think arts administration can be so dry, but it's because I believe that the modeling that we've had seems to be dry, but you seem so excited. It's contagious. Your energy and your love for the space and your love for the process, it exudes creativity and energy, and I'm so excited to meet you because you are showing us a different kind of model. In Q's Blue World, we're looking for creatives. So whether you're an artist, you're a poet, you're an actor or a musician, we are celebrating people who are genuinely wanting to create and collaborate. In that transition, how does your organization celebrate collaboration?
I think identifying that it exists, you know, and being at peace with that and understanding the utility of it. I'm in an interesting position with this organization because, and I mean, you'll get the opportunity, maybe you'll get the opportunity to speak to her later, but we have a programming coordinator who's like the real VIP, or the MVP, sorry. You know, so I make sure like the bills get paid around here, you know, and then I enjoy everything that manifests in the space because of what's happening, you know, from that particular office. So I get to enjoy that piece of it. There's times where I get to walk into the gallery and a show has been taken down and it looks like a construction zone in here, and then you see another show go up and it's like, oh, this is new life. This is magic, you know. So it's like you get to have a new life like every time, and the space gets to enjoy a new life every time. So there's always a different energy in here, and if you're at one with whatever that energy is, and you can kind of get into a groove with it, then it'll push you through. Like I have a 3-year commitment to the organization. I'm going into year 2 of that commitment. The cool thing about the organization is they provide a discretionary leave, you know, to pursue, you know, creative practice or creative project of some sort. You know, so I'm also thinking about the possibility of I might be able to step away from here for like 4 months or so, and then go out there and like feed myself creatively, and then bring another energy back into the place. You know, but we don't try to forecast too far into the future, you know, because an arts organization, you're also thinking about like funding and making sure those wheels are constantly going, you know. So that it's really that separation of like right and left hemisphere, and like trying to like merge the two of them. Myself on the creative side, you know, I've had the pleasure and maybe even the privilege of just living inside that cartoon part of my brain for so long, that like opening the door and going into that other side, the other side that's very black and white, and there's a lot of like 90-degree angles and such, you know. But it's important, because if you can become like inside your universe, master both spaces, then you've done what you were supposed to do, you know. But that's just a slice. That's like a slice of my story. You know what I mean? Like in my story roots all the way back to what I mentioned earlier about my ancestors' journey and how I pay homage, you know, to that journey. Because the rest of it, this is an illusion. You know, like I look at my watch and I watch the second hand go around, and that's Artcite. Like that's my contribution to Artcite. It'll be passed on to somebody else, and then it'll become part of their story, and they'll feed on all that energy. And I'm gonna go back out into the world and, you know, facilitate spells, you know, and you know, put magic all over landscapes, and you know, that'll be the imprint that I leave, you know. So for me, like what am I? I'm a magician. That's we make something out of nothing. Like that's our specialty, you know, and that's what the ancestors have been doing, you know, for generations and generations. You know, before there was Earth, before there was stars, before there was Milky Way, before we identified exploding stars or anything like that. You make something out of nothing. Big Bang, you know, Big Bang, and then everything after.
Now, were you always an arts administrator? Was that what you thought that you were going to be, or was that another creative form that you really loved, or forms that you loved?
Oh, hell no! Arts administration was never part of the deal. Arts administration, the structure of a gallery and organization itself, like that wasn't part of the plan. But there was an element of community activism that brings me into the space. You know, like an organization that is now moving into its 40th year has a lot of presence, has a lot of resource, so how can we best utilize those resources for the sake of the community? Like the utility of the space it's a tool. We receive operational funding. Like, what does that mean for our community? What that means for our community is we have the ability to provide an accessible space. We have the ability to support local and regional projects. And I'm an artist that didn't have access to any of that from this place prior to coming here. So the 3 years that I have a commitment here, it's how do we leverage that? How does everybody get to take a piece of Artcite so that Artcite gets to truly belong to all of the people? And if I leave this place after my commitment and that's the sort of energy that's in here, then I'm happy. I'm happy with that.
Then that will be a part of the gift of legacy that you leave.
That'll be part of the legacy, and I'm one in a long line of people who have had the opportunity to put an imprint here, and there's going to be many that come after me, and I look forward to the day to where I'm walking through that door just as neighborhood Joe and enjoying an exhibition in the space. I get to do that right now, but then I got to go up those stairs into that loft and punch numbers into my computer, and I'd much rather drink tea all day and think about things.
Now, what kind of artists, what kind of mindset are you trying to attract into the space?
There's not really a spectrum of what that looks like. If you are creative, if you are creative and you know it, this is your space. If you are creative and you don't know it, this is your space, because you're going to find you might find that map that leads you to whatever that treasure is that gives you that awakening of this is what I've been all along. Like for me, my mother would say I was that interesting kid that would climb into the side table and close the door, and she would say, "Oh, you would hide in there." But I wasn't hiding in there. I was creating worlds inside that space. Worlds that this place needs. Without that little pocket of creativity, this place ceases to exist because we forget how to look at it. We forget how to interact with it. And as a child, I would draw pictures of everything I'd seen, and I learned later on that I wasn't drawing pictures, I was telling stories.
Yes.
What I've inherited from my grandmother Travis is your storyteller. She was a seer and a storyteller. She for as long as I had the opportunity to know her, she had severe Alzheimer's. So she was existing on a different plane, and I didn't have the intelligence to understand what that was while she was here. But later on, it's like she gave me the drum, she gave me the poetry, she gave me the audacity to look out into the world and create language for it. So there's a bit of homage that exists in that space too. But I was turning these pictures into stories. I went to an elementary school that had no art programs, but they were in the second grade. They were able to send me to Mackenzie Hall to work with an artist who had a studio in there, and myself and another student, we would go there in the mornings on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and he would teach us the craft of printmaking and such. These are little tiny brains, but for us, we got to walk away from school and go do art inside this place. So that's it was in that moment where I was like, okay, this is what I am, and then the rest of it is figuring out what that means. I went to a high school for the first couple of years that barely had an English department. There was no drama program. We had a pretty decent visual arts program, but nobody in the class really took it serious. So being able to practice serious in that space wasn't really accessible. But when I got into the 11th grade, I transferred to another school, and it was in a bit more of an affluent neighborhood. But now I was exposed to all of these these younger, like well-to-do kids whose parents put them in piano classes when they were 5, and they were doing dance, like all the, like it never occurred to me that there were classes for this stuff. Like for me and my cousins, we were in the basement, we were practicing like new edition choreography in the basement. Then we would go upstairs and we'd like show off to our aunties and our uncles and such, you know. And then I remember walking through the hallways of this school, and I heard the most beautiful voice, and it was one of my classmates was sitting on, and she was getting ready to audition for the school play. I'm like, word? Y'all do a school play? I'm like, you have a stage and curtains and everything, and they did. And our drama teacher at the time, he like encouraged me. He was like, oh, you should come out and do this show. I was like, nah, I'm coming from the hood, right? So then I'm like musical. I'm like, no. I'm like, I do dramatic stuff. I was like, I'll do dramatic stuff. You know, I want that Sidney Poitier. And they're like, no. We're doing Little Shop of Horrors. You can be the plant. And I was like, I don't know. And it kept on kind of nudging me on, and I was like, okay. And then I got bit by it. So after high school, I spent 10 years doing musical theater. You know, just like in that world. My first like bigger show was West Side Story, and I got to play a shark, and I was da. Yeah, I got to jump, climbing the fences and everything, and I was like, this is what we're gonna do. And a lot of performers who might be listening to this can relate to this. At some point in like the musical theater game, especially if you're like doing a lot of dancing, eventually your knees are like, you know what, son, you gotta chill out. And that's when I kind of fell into spoken word. I was like, shoot, I can grab a monologue and just like bring that to the stage, and folks are gonna be like, what was that?
Mic drop.
Yeah, and I had been doing like a lot of writing and such too. Like even when I was like 14 and 15, when I should have been like paying a bit more attention in class and such, I was like writing in my notebook. And I remember the first time I came out of the community that I grew up in, which is called Sandwich Town, which in Canada is known to be like the oldest settlement on this side of Montreal. Very, very historic, has a lot of underground railroad routes and such. And I was like, this is my place. I don't need to leave this place. Like, we're gonna build inside this place. And then one day, you know, poetry like brought me out of there and brought me downtown. So I remember going into this place, open mic poetry. I walk in, I was like, I don't know about this. These cats don't look like us. Like this is a different. This is a different spot. And I sat there and I was listening to them, and they were very academic, you know, and you could tell like they studied really hard, and I appreciated what they were doing, because I was like, I need to capture that piece too. But check this out, you know. And
what did you perform? Do you remember it?
Yeah, I had this piece that I had written when I was like 13. And it was truth. Just a young cat trying to make it, keeping it real without faking it. Walking through the streets, through the belly of the beast, breaking it. Praying with sisters on trash cans, crack at baking it, trying to escape it. Brothers behind corners, crack at baking it, trying to escape it, losing lives. No high goodbyes, no wings to fly, no will to try on this block. There's no second hands on clocks, only Glocks loaded and pointed. Hope stolen and molded, folded in two from the hand that's holding. Heat to the street, skip a beat, take a seat and be easy. See me, love me, touch me, heal me, believe me. I was just a young cat trying to make it, keeping it real without faking it. And there's a piece in there that...
And that was 13-year-old baby poet.
Yeah.
Yes. He had a message. 13 years old. So those of you who are 13 or think that you are too young to do this, look at it. You've got a voice. Use it.
Yeah, build those bridges, because that piece I've added into an extended performance piece called My Word, and I opened the show with that piece, because that was 13-year-old me looking out the window in my house, and I lived in the PJs, the projects. For those of you who aren't familiar, it's community housing like geared to income. So behind your house you have an alley and a dumpster and a basketball net, and day after day I would see that dumpster go up in flames. Like somebody would go by, they'd set it on fire, And it was like, that was the thing for the teenagers to do back then. They're like, oh shoot, I'm gonna set this trash can on fire, you know. But what would ring out around that is the blazing of like barrels, like clapping back, clap, 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 clapping back, you know, like spitting their own very, very specific poetry, which is also the storytelling of like rage and riddled with some angst and such. But I was like absorbing all of that, and then finding like an outlet for it, and drawing the picture, writing the story under the pillow, and that's where it kind of sits, you know. And then you get a little bit older, you kind of piece it all together. And it took me till I was probably like in my 34th or 35th year on this planet, where I was like, okay, I've been writing like a documentary, like since I was so young, and I can place the pieces next to each other and create the content in the middle.
Right.
And each piece, there's gonna be someone who's like, oh, word, I know that, I wrote that before, and then we're connected that way. And it's like, okay, we're like I am your tribe, you are my tribe. We can build something, you know. And that's the sort of energy that we put into like community outreach. You know, 2013 we founded the Bloomfield House, you know, and it was just one of those situations where people shouldn't live in a neighborhood with no community center. What you're gonna do about it? You're gonna build a community center, and it's gonna happen like inside your house. Who are the members and who's the board of directors? Well, the people who live on that street. Like they're going to dictate it. And this was coming after like Occupy Wall Street. You know, I'd spent some time in the encampment in Windsor, and what I'd experienced inside Windsor is this intentional community that just like blossomed, and it blew my mind. It reminded me of my childhood. Now my grandmother Louise, who I had mentioned, she gave birth to 24 children. You know, so my family was like a small town. It was kind of like run like a small town. You know, when we had Christmas dinner, Thanksgiving, and whatever, like all these people would, you know, they'd fall upon like Aunt Lizzie's table, you know, to eat food. This sort of community outreach, which manifested the Bloomfield House, was just like the exercise of like feeding your community, which is something that's very natural for us, like in our community, but very structured in spaces outside of there, because you spend more time thinking about health and safety regulations than you think about like easing a hungry stomach, or providing shelter, you know, above somebody's head, or just like love, you know, like what does love look like when it's not attached to a survey for reporting on grant obligations and this sort of thing, you know. So yeah, and just to go all the way back around, like you asked me, like who am I, or what am I, or like what kind of artist am I? It's whatever that is, you know. And if there's language for it, good, you know. If there's not language for it, then that's good too, you know. But I always kind of just draw it back to alchemy, you know, just
magic. I've got a question for you. We have a global audience. You have talked really so much about community, home, your lineage. Now thinking globally, what would you want to say to our global audience?
Oh shoot! I mean, I talk to the vastness of the world the same way I would talk to just one single person. You know, like my philosophy, you know, here in this experience is that, you know, we're surrounded by illusion. Like there's kind of a matrix that's there, and sometimes the way it's spoon-fed to us is that, you know, we should be intimidated by that because you're stuck. You know, I believe it to be like a clear canvas. Like if you can think it, then you can materialize it, you know. So it doesn't matter if you're in Windsor, Ontario, sitting inside this gallery, or if you're, you know, sitting in Singapore. I've not been to Singapore, so I don't know what folks do there. But whatever you do in Singapore, it's like it's the same science, you know. And if we talk about like community building, it's rooted in, you know, our humanity and our exercise, the way that we exercise like love and compassion, you know. And that's the basis of it, you know. Like, do you have the ability to do for somebody else without the expectation that you're going to be able to wear that like a crown of some sort, you know? And I'll say to the people who do it to wear the crown, like the crown gets heavy. And what we know of like kings and queens of the past, oftentimes they lose their head because of it, you know. So what's the cost of ego, you know? And if we can remove ego, and I'm not at war with ego, like ego, it can also be very, very necessary, you know, to keep us in line as we move through this experience. But you know, the root of like just love and compassion, and I mean, if you have time for it, you can like draw like the respect into it too.
Yeah.
That's community. You know, that's community building, you know. So my message going out to the world is like there's a programming metric that tells us that it's you versus them, and that's because of the geological borders that we've been surrounded in. But it doesn't exist, you know. It's an illusion, you know. And if we can step up to those bars that are surrounding us and just wave our hands through it, then we know that they're not really there, but there is energy. And if we can like absorb that energy for you know, positive, then here we are, you know.
And this is the magic. Here we are sitting face to face, but the truth is you're talking magic over a whole world.
Yeah, and I mean, and you are intelligent and beautiful and wonderful interviewer. Just like you just fell out of the sky, like you just like literally came out of the clouds, landed in Windsor, Balway Wongitanong, and here you are inside the gallery with us. You know, having this conversation.
It's magic, right?
It's magic.
Pure magic. So my brother would ask, Shen would say, if you had one question to ask the Blue Mermaid, that's why I perform as, what would it be? What would you ask me?
When you're utilizing words and language to convey story, what are you creating? What are you creating with your words?
I am creating resonance. Resonance, inviting other souls to resound and combine with mine so that we can heal this world. That is my deepest desire. I truly believe that if we listen to one another and harmonize with one another, we can't treat other people badly anymore. And so I believe what we are doing right now is healing work for our world.
Right on.
Closing out, last thought. If you had one piece of advice, one sentence or two to leave our audience, what blessing would you give them?
You're enough. You are enough.
TJ, it is an honor to meet another kindred spirit.
Right on.
Yeah.
It's been nice. I invite you to Windsor. Come discover this place.
Yes.
You know, I heard someone say the other day. I just came back from like a family reunion, and my cousin says she was in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. Her niece says, "Oh, you got to get your tattoo done in Atlanta because in Canada they're not going to know how to put colored ink on your melanated skin." And I was, because the idea is that, well, certainly there can't be people of color in Canada, and that's bizarre. And fact check, that's a lie.
And I can prove that because I've been walking along Windsor and I'm like, ooh, someone from
my part of the world. Ooh, I see another person. Ooh, that's something I want to eat.
Yeah,
So,
we're all here. It's the
Yes.
it's the world's
Come
like
to
greatest
Windsor.
secret. The world's
Yes.
greatest secret.
yes, artist residency next. Stop.
Right
Windsor, Canada. So, this is Kemlyn Tom Bappy with DJ here in Windsor, Canada. Artcite, check it out. And everyone, this is Kemlyn Tom Bappy with Q's Blue World with another episode of You've Got to Meet DJ. Everybody take care of yourselves. Peace, love, and light.
Peace.
Yeah. Thank you.
The queen.